my sister and me. But there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner.
All right, we are live, and we are welcome to Reform Labs, and we are covering
to start up small businesses,
the president
they are part of the
debate,
backbone of America's economy.
and we're gonna
my opponent on the
have
other
some
hand,
fun
his
doing
plan
this.
is to do what he has done before.
Sorry for the late start, guys.
Yeah, a bunch of us were getting off work, so we're just rolling it out as is.
Which will result in $5 trillion to America's
$5
deficit.
trillion. I should have put that down on the bingo.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump
yeah,
sales
we are
tax,
also doing some
which would be
bingo
a 20%
stuff.
tax
So
on
whatever that
everyday
you're drinking,
goods
if it's
that you
coffee,
rely on
Monster,
to get
Hawaiian
through the
drink.
month. Economists have
drink.
said that Trump
Drink.
sales
In Hawaii,
tax
we
would
just call it
actually
a drink.
result for middle-class families
We have, real quick to introduce you, we have here with us, you guys already know who it is, we have Chad Randall, and then we have the captain with the man of the beard of John Calvin, Adrian Cookson.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
They call me the tribal chief, the big kahuna.
All right, let's go and unmute the...
I should have said that. That's the one I wanted on the bingo. That's an incorrect statement.
Finally, after
All right.
75 years,
Stream
pay
is
us back
unmuted
for
again.
all that we've done for the world.
For the
and
debate.
the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and
so if you guys are,
as you know, from China. In
the
fact,
chat,
they never
I
took the
can
tariff
see
off
the chat.
because it was so much money they can't.
I will also relay
totally
anything
destroy
that's
everything
stated,
that
any
they've set out
comical
to do.
stuff.
They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher
look at this.
than they were just a few years ago.
This is my bingo
has been
sheet.
a disaster
Look at those
for
straight
people,
lines.
for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions
You can
of
thank
people
Chad
pouring
for that.
into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions,
was that
and
Kanoa?
insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics,
go ahead and
also
share the
unions.
YouTube
Unions are going to be affected
Facebook.
very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country.
Economy.
I'll do it again and even better.
Anyone got greatest economy?
And border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond.
Chad's over there scribbling in greatest economy.
I'd love to.
Bingo.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
Wow.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
That was called.
And what we have done is clean up
Also,
Donald
Kanoa's
Trump's
got this
mess.
nifty little display hat too. You guys can take a look at.
On what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American
I think
people. But I'm
the
gonna
the
tell you
letters
on this
are appearing
debate
backwards.
tonight, you're going to
May have
hear
to flip
from
your
the
screen.
same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling.
What is it supposed
What
to say
you're
on your
gonna hear
hat?
tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing
she brought up
if he were
Project.
elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president
We haven't
who
decided
understands the importance of
what we
bringing
win.
us together, knowing we have so much
treat
more in
dinner.
common than what separates
goodness.
us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it.
Nobody knows
purposely. I'm
what
not going to read
Project
it.
25
This was a
is.
group of people that got together.
Granted, there
They
are
came
some
up with
things on there that
ideas.
are
I guess some good, some
that are
bad.
nifty.
But it makes
But
no
not
difference.
all of
I have
it.
nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic.
Get rid of
the
abortion.
pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic.
I think Trump was the highest on unemployment
where
stuff.
the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we
Facebook
got masks,
and
we did things that nobody
YouTube.
thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military.
And
they give
about
me
to be
credit for a
Rumble.
lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce-back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit.
Lord willing,
but I
Rumble
was
is
the one
going.
that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative
An opportunity
plans for the
economy
future of
sounds like
America.
that she's a
What Goldman
opportunist.
Sachs has said is that
Takes
Donald
advantage
Trump's
where she
plan
can.
would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look
adjusting some
at
sizes
where
on the
we
fly
are
here.
and where we stand on the
Don't
issues.
mind
And
me.
I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Oh, I thought she was going to bring up the thumb one.
I gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan.
Other
It's a
people
plan that's
said.
gonna bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to
Are we
make
counting that one, or
people
are we gonna
want
wait
to
till
be
they actually
able
say
to
that's
go
what
and
they
work
say?
and
Well,
create
he said
jobs and
that
create a lot of
professors
good,
said that his
solid
plan is
money
good.
for our,
All right,
for our
we'll
country.
put a maybe on that
Just
one.
to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences.
Did anybody
like
have Trump
run,
bring
spot,
this up,
run.
Biden?
4 sentences that are just,
No.
we'll
I
try
just
and
have-
lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this.
So
because
what are
your
our
plan is
stance
what
on
she
tariffs?
calls
What do you
is
think,
essentially a national
Chadley?
sales tax.
Do
Your
you think
proposal
that
calls for
tariffs should be
as you
coming
pointed
in?
out here on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing
Okay.
tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you
Reduces
know, many
taxes
economists
overall in
say that
America?
with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food,
Yeah.
clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us
Someone
off.
have China?
That was one
China was paying us
That was one I had
hundreds of
written down,
billions of dollars,
China.
and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Hundreds of billions
I had no
of
inflation,
dollars.
virtually no inflation.
I
They
haven't-
had the
I have
highest
not been
inflation
keeping
perhaps
track.
in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country
My
are
goodness, eggs.
absolutely dying with what they've done.
China.
They've destroyed the economy, and all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90%
No,
that
he's
the
talking about
Trump
Biden, but he didn't say
economy
they were
was
the worst,
great,
I don't think.
that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited
Ended.
trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve
Lay's
and
chips,
modernize their
Doritos,
military.
Fritos,
Basically
Cheetos.
sold us out when a policy
whole
about
Eatos
China
family?
should
Wasn't
be
Biden
making
the
sure
one
the
that
United States of
abandoned a
America
whole bunch
wins
of
the
military
competition for the
stuff?
21st century,
Yep.
which means focusing on the details
Left a
of
whole
what
bunch of
that requires,
pew-pews in
focusing
another
on
country, and
relationships
then
with our allies, focusing on
and then our
investing in
enemies got hold of
American-based
those
technology
pew-pews.
so that we win the race race on AI, on quantum computing.
Are we live on
Focusing
TikTok?
on what we need to
No,
do
but
to support America's workforce,
we can't be.
so that we don't end up having on
Not
the
through
short end of
OBS.
the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi.
Again, guys, if anyone is in the chat, go ahead and put comments down.
And not giving us
Who do you think is going to do better? Who are you going to be?
President Trump
First of all, they bought the
Who do you think
chips
would
from
do a
Taiwan.
better job
We
just
hardly
overall
make
running
chips
the
anymore
country?
because of,
And if you think neither,
philosophies
then
like
just
they have
put in the
and
comment section
policies
neither.
like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy.
Personally, I
Everything
don't want either
that she
one to be
believed
running the
3
country
years ago
because
and 4 years ago is out the
Trump
window.
is wicked
She's
evil.
going to
Same
my
thing with
philosophy
Kamala.
now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But
That should have been on
if
the
she ever got
bingo.
elected, she'd change it, and it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
This one,
Her
this
father's a
stream we are
Marxist
watching
professor in
from
economics,
ABC,
and he taught her well.
YouTube.
But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly,
Real quick, I'm going to predict
I believe
Trump's going to
21
drop the ball
million people,
when it
not
gets
the 15
onto
that
the
people
abortion
say.
topic.
And I think
That's what
it's
I'm
a
thinking.
lot
It's
higher
going
than
to
21. That's bigger than New York
that's going to be
State
the
pouring in.
major
And
downfall
just
for
look
Trump
at
in
what
this.
they're
He's going to
doing to
talk
our
about
country.
abortion,
They're criminals. Many of these
and he's going to
people
give his
coming in are
personal opinion
criminals.
on it.
And that's
Yep.
bad
He'll lose
for
the
our
vote.
economy too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane.
Did you see her face?
Yeah, she was like, "How dare you?
They have to hate
How dare you?"
President Trump. Thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President
Here we go.
Trump
Here we go.
was able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights.
Yeah.
In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible
like how she
pick,
gets
by the
real
way,
life.
for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I
There you
believe
go.
strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote.
In case you guys
And that's
didn't
what
know,
happened.
well, I'll wait, sorry.
Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually
Right.
a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life.
No, it does not.
Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for
they don't
rape
even call
and
it murder.
incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next.
Fact check, abortion is still legal in
and
all 50
one
states.
does not have to abandon
all the way up to 9 months.
Or deeply held
even
beliefs
in some
to
states
agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our
they
country.
can do it
You want to talk
themselves
about this
in the
is
law.
what people
so
wanted?
They don't have the
Pregnant
pills to do
women
it yet,
who
but
want
once
to
they
carry
do that, they
a
can.
pregnancy to term,
Technically, they can still
suffering
do
from a
it
miscarriage,
if
being
they
denied
don't do it
care
inside a
in an
clinic.
emergency room
So
because
that if
the
they know
healthcare
somebody who knows how to do it, they can do it in
providers
the
are
comfort
afraid
of their
they
own
might go
home.
to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Yeah, the trigger laws in
She didn't
Missouri
want that.
don't even
Her
call it
husband didn't
murder.
want
It says that they might get
12 or
involuntary
13-year-old
manslaughter,
survivor
and
of
that's just for the
incest
doctor.
being
Right.
forced to carry a pregnancy to
Yeah,
term?
she can do it at
And I just
home.
preached a sermon on that, guys, too. You can look in our stuff.
When Congress passes a
Yeah, she
bill
can do it at
to
home.
put
She can
back in
just
place
go
the
across state
protections of
lines.
Roe v. Wade,
So,
as President
and
of the
in
United
some
States, I will
states,
proudly sign
it allows for
into
post
law.
or
But
even partial birth
understand,
abortion.
if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his project
There you go.
2025,
National abortion
there would be
ban.
a national
Heard
abortion,
that one.
a monitor
Yeah,
that
but
would
it
be
won't
monitoring
actually
your
be a
pregnancies, your
ban. It'll
miscarriages.
just be a
Well, right.
restriction.
No, I
American
meant
people
that was
believe
one of the
that
that was one of my
certain
bingos.
freedoms, in
I just need
particular the
Trump to
freedom to
talk
make decisions
about
one's own
ducks
body,
and cats.
should not be made by the government.
Thank you.
We got
Vice
Ray
President.
Ray in the chat.
Yo, Ray Ray.
It's a lie.
Ray Ray,
I'm not signing a ban,
Crisis
and there's no
King.
reason to
Which
sign a ban
one do you
because
think
we've
has?
gotten what
Which one do you
everybody
think this
wanted.
nation deserves?
Democrats, Republicans,
Ooh.
and everybody
Oh
else,
goodness.
and every
Our
legal-
nation
Yes.
deserves.
Yeah, dude. You had me beat. Yes.
Our nation
It may take a little
deserves
time,
the wrath
but
of
for
God,
52
and
years,
so
this issue
uh,
has torn
He is
our
bringing us
country
mercy by
apart. And
presenting
they've
just
wanted
these
it
two
back in the
options.
States. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting.
Because our nation
What
is not
she says
repenting. Our
is
nation.
an
Here, real quick.
absolute lie.
Fact
And as far as the
check this.
abortion ban,
The states have always had
I'm
the
not in
rights.
favor of abortion ban,
Most
but
people
it
don't know
doesn't
that.
matter because
Yeah.
this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two
Smart
things.
move by
Number
Trump here.
one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're
Yeah,
going to
Ray
get
Ray
student
says
loans
life of the mother
terminated, and it
exceptions
ended up being a
will
total catastrophe.
include partial birth abortion.
The student loans, and then
Republicans
her,
and
I think
sure.
Democrats
probably
agree.
her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out.
That's a boss
and said,
move.
We'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out,
Spend
got
all your time at
rejected
the beach.
again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did
Don't
come to your
ignore
desk.
No, I
it if
didn't
he's
discuss
fine.
it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look,
This is still the abortion
we
thing.
don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't
Right.
get student
That's a
loans.
smart
They
move by
couldn't
him
get
not
student
giving his
loans. They didn't
personal
even
opinion.
come
I said
close to
the
getting
best thing
student
he could do is
loans.
not
They
give his
taunted
personal
young
opinion.
people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President
It's always
Harris,
been
we'll give
there.
you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America
Well, Roe
is
v.
a woman
Wade
carrying
never
a
really
pregnancy
actually had
to
protections.
term
It was just a court opinion.
asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who
Dude, she's just
pray
helping him at this point.
and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our
Dude, I know. I was like, I have
Working
Trump down for a
people,
Christianity
working women
remark. People
who
pray.
are
I didn't
working
put the
one or two
camel, the camel
jobs,
one.
who can barely afford childcare as it is.
So we
have
should
to travel
murder
to
the
another
children.
State to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are
Healthcare.
putting
Here, let me
her
put that in
through
quotes.
is unconscionable.
Murdering your
And
child
the
is not
people of
healthcare.
America
Sorry.
have not. The
Not sorry.
majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why, in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President
Excuse
Harrison.
me, I
Yes,
have to
exactly.
respond.
It's like the
Another lie.
trolley
It's
analogy.
another lie.
The two
I
tracks
have
in
been
the
a
trolley
leader
analogy,
on
Adam.
IVF, which is fertilization.
IVF kills
The
multiple
I have been
babies
a leader.
just
In
for one
fact,
baby.
When they got a
Ray
very
Ray
negative
says.
decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the
Yeah, it's just like the
legislature 2
trolley.
days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows
Talk
it.
about the ducks.
I have been a leader on fertilization,
Quick,
IVF.
quick.
And the
No,
other thing,
this and Trump is confused
You
here. I'll
should
talk about this
ask.
later.
will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
could do
Yeah, they
abortions
said they'd
in
have it
the
muted.
7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia.
Yeah,
the
they need to
governor
stop,
of Virginia said we put the baby aside
offering
and then we
potential
determine
IVF
what we
and
want to
just
do with the baby.
President
have what
Trump,
is there
thank
and
you.
people
We're going
adopt.
to turn now to immigration
Adopt
and
the
border
IVF
security.
babies.
We know it's an issue that's important to
I think he did
Republicans,
better
Democrats,
on that
voters
issue than I
across the
thought he
board
was
in
going
this country.
to. I
Vice
thought he was going to
President
bring up his
Harrison,
personal
you were
opinion a
tasked
lot
by
more, and he started
President
to with the
Biden
IVF,
getting
and
to
that
the
I said that would be a
root
big
causes of
mistake for him to
migration
do
from
that.
Central America. We know that illegal
Kamala
border
actually
crossings
saved him
reached a
on that.
record high in the Biden administration. This past June,
Just so you know,
President Biden
IVF
imposed tough
is
new
evil.
asylum restrictions.
Yep.
We know
It
the
is
numbers
still
since
child
then have dropped
sacrifice.
significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
Yeah, good
So I'm
question.
the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone,
Why
called
doesn't
up
she
some folks
show
in
her
Congress and
disdain
said, kill the bill. And you know
for
why?
free health care
Because
for
he'd prefer to run on a problem
illegal
instead of fixing
immigrants?
a problem. And understand, this comes
Driver
at a time
licenses for
where
illegal
the people
immigrants.
of
Show
our
your
country
disdain for that.
actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
Ray. Amen.
And I'm going to actually do
was
something
raised,
really
was it not?
unusual, and I'm going to
Isn't that what
invite
he just
you
asked?
to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies
All right,
early
Don Quixote.
out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
I did not
And
have
I'll
that
tell
on
you,
my
I
bingo.
believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
I didn't know
President
Donald
Harris, thank you.
hated
President Trump,
windmills.
on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of
let you
additional
respond, but
agents and
first.
officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. And then showing them.
Come on, Kamala, give us the awkward laugh.
She can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies
Give
in the
us the
history of
laugh.
politics.
She puts her hand on her
That's because
chin.
people wanna take
Oh,
their
really?
country back.
Interesting.
Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into the country.
We'll put
What's happening to the towns all over the
I'll
United
allow
States.
it.
A lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because
Yeah.
they're so embarrassed by it.
Ray Ray says, how
In
about putting the actual
Springfield,
Constitution first?
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the
Wow.
cats.
Yeah! Let's go! Thank you, Trump! Bingo!
And this is what's
Let's
happening.
go!
And it's a shame. As far as
Dinner's on you clowns tonight.
As far as
I said I need him to bring up the cats.
They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great
I haven't been
again.
keeping track,
She's
so I
destroying
already
this
won
country.
before you did.
And if she becomes president,
You
this
lost.
country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here.
I'm
You
going
bring
for
up
two.
Springfield.
That's one
Ohio,
buffed up
and
Venezuelan.
ABC News did
I
reach
need
out
Trump to
the
talk. I
same
need Trump to
there.
talk about
He
the
told
most
us
fair
there
election
have been no
ever.
credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here.
People on television say
clear-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Yep, we'll find out.
Talk about extreme. You know,
That was close.
I'm counting it.
in
Let's
this
go.
Election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans.
Now I need
who have
Trump. I need
formally
Trump to bring up about him
President
being
Bush,
shot
Mitt
and Trump
Romney,
being
and John
about the most
McCain,
fair election.
including the endorsement of
Are you going for a
former
full
Vice
board?
President Dick Cheney and Congressman
See how many times I can win.
Liz Cheney. And if
Richard
you
Paper.
want to really know the inside
see what
track
you got.
on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American
Oh, kind of like the
people are
rhetoric that
not
you're
being
spewing,
addressed,
Kamala?
I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you.
Not saying that
because
Trump is a
when I hear that-
fantastic stand-up
See, I'm a
guy, but
different kind
in
of a
comparison.
person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad
You're
things.
fired.
Bad job. I fired them. They didn't fire
The
one
apprentice.
person. They
Do we
didn't
have
fire
an apprentice
anybody having to
callback?
do with
No.
Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have
thought he was
done
gonna take
such a
credit and
poor
go, "I even
job,
helped them
and
with
they
their
never
books."
Yeah.
fire anybody.
They
Look
say
at
their
the
books are one of the
economy.
best because it
Look at
talks
the
about me.
inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same
Well,
people.
you know
That's
what-
a good way
what works,
not to have books written about you. But just to finish,
with
I got
writing
more
books,
votes than any
a free
Republican
market,
in history
capitalism.
by far.
You know where you
In
can't
fact, I
write
got
and
more
sell
votes
books?
than any president sitting president
China.
in history by far.
Communism, socialism.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of
See,
criminals.
yeah, that would be
They
tough
allowed
to
terrorists.
track
They allowed
down
common street criminals. They allowed people
illegal
to come in,
immigrants.
drug dealers to come into our country, and then now
Like,
in
you
the
would
United
have to go
States
door to door
and
and
told
ask for,
by
like,
their
proof of
countries, like
identity, which would
Venezuela,
be
don't
a
ever come
violation
back
of
or we're going to kill you. Do you know that
privacy.
crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country.
Changed your hat.
This will be one of the greatest mistakes in
They're
history
eating
for them to
cats.
allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because
See, he
they're
didn't address it,
destroying
though.
the fabric of our country by what they've done.
He didn't address
There's never
how
been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric
how
of
he
our
would go
country.
about getting these
Millions of
illegal
people
immigrants out,
let
how
in,
he would track them
and
down.
all over the world. Crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime.
Plus, can you really trust the
Just
FBI?
like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted.
There it is!
Oh,
National security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual
how many
assault.
of those litigations?
Court appearance is in November.
How many
and his own
litigations
criminal
has he
sentencing.
been found guilty
And
on?
let's be clear, where each person
Absolutely.
stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this
Talking about
race.
Biden,
It is
yeah.
important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do
Oh,
to
ad
support
hominem
our
and not
small
the issue. Oh,
businesses, address
Kamala
bringing down
referring
the
to
price of groceries.
his trials.
But frankly,
Is
the
that what
American
you were talking
people
about,
are
Ray Ray?
exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning
excuse me.
most of them, and I will win the rest
Raise
on
his hand.
appeal.
Can I
And you
talk to
saw
him?
that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court.
Ah,
I'm
yes.
winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
It is
They're
true,
fake
like,
cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really
Everything
quick
that had
response here,
happened
Vice
to
President Harris, on
Trump,
this
all the
notion of
trials and all that.
weaponization of the Justice Department.
Like, do we
Well,
have
let's
any
talk
president
about
in history that has
extreme
gone
and
through that
understand
much
the context
scrutiny?
in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of
The way that she
Congress.
says
Understand
disdain.
what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris.
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
I wonder if he's going to use it as toilet
This is
paper
the
too.
one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that
there
they
it
say
is.
about me. They talk about democracy.
That's
I'm
two
a threat
for
to
me.
Democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake Russia investigation.
We have a
That
lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign.
What
says
is
you
an
don't.
assault
You
weapon?
supported decriminalizing border crossings.
I would
Now you're
like
taking
someone
a
to clarify
harder
that,
line.
please.
I know you say that your values have not changed.
Oh.
So then why have so many of your policy positions
So a
changed?
four-pronged fork?
So
Yeah,
my values
here we
have not
go.
changed,
She's like,
and I'm
why
gonna
has
discuss every
so
one
many of your
at
policies
least every point
changed?
that you've made, but in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020.
Well,
I will
I mean,
not ban
was that
fracking.
a voice
I
change?
have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking.
her policies change as
My
often as
position
she
is that
changes
we
her
have
mind on
got
where she
to
wants to eat for dinner.
invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce
Or her
our
race.
reliance on foreign
Or
oil.
her
We
voice.
have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was
That's
able to buy our
interesting.
first
She says
home when
that
I was a
we
teenager.
can't rely on foreign
The
oil, but
values I
she
bring to the
backed
importance
a
of
guy that
homeownership,
shut
knowing not
down
everybody got handed
domestic oil
$400
pipelines.
million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when
Increase
I
the
was in high
amount of
school who was
homes,
sexually
like how
assaulted
Biden
by her
increased the amount of
stepfather.
jobs.
And my focus then on protecting women
Meaning
and children
none?
from violent crime
I need
is
Trump
based
to
on a
bring up something
value
about
that is
Christianity, and
deeply
I'll have
grounded in
3.
the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values
How
have
exactly
not
are you going to
changed.
protect
And
people
what is
from
important is
scams
that there is a president who actually
without an
brings
invasion of
values
privacy?
and a perspective that is about lifting
Without a
people
Christian
up
worldview, how
and not beating
can you actually
people
go about doing
down
that properly?
and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see
Wait,
it, they
didn't
are
Trump
even surprised.
years and years and years
So
ago
we don't have
say
to
that he
talk
got a
about that.
small loan of $1
Fracking,
million
she's been
from
against
his
it for
dad?
12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different
I would have
policies.
loved to have gotten a
She was big
small
on
loan
defund
of
the
$1 million.
police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
Well, it's
Does that
from his
sound familiar?
dad,
You know
so
what? Here,
She went out.
I haven't drank that one yet.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed
Trump say
people,
something about
that
Christianity.
burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised
Well,
money to get
Ray
them
Ray.
out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever
I'd
think
mentioned
of.
about a
Now she
Christian
wants to
worldview.
do
She's done things that-
transgender operations on illegal
Hey,
aliens that
bucko.
are in
She
prison.
says she's a
This is
Baptist with a
radical
Buddhist
left
mother.
liberal that would do
Oh,
this.
Buddhist
She wants
roots.
to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important, in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it.
That is true.
And the prices were going up
the
roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been
he did have domestic pipelines, and
because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it
pretty much as soon as Biden got into presidency.
Because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling.
He shut down multiple pipelines.
So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as she
We're out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our
Personally,
democracy.
I'm going to do it right in. I'm not going to vote for either one of these
crisis.
wicked, despicable
Mr.
people.
President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol.
But
you
the one
said
that
you
would
be right there
better
with
off
them.
our nation.
The country and the world saw what played out at
The
the Capitol
Orange
that day,
Man.
the officers coming under attack.
I
Aides in
don't
the
know
West
about
Wing
that.
say you watched it unfold
I mean,
on television
between the two
off the
options
Oval
here.
Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home.
I mean,
both
of them would have the same effect in regard to abortion.
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically.
Yes,
and
vote no on
the
Amendment
other
3.
side
Thank
was
you,
killed.
Ray Ray. You have a good
Ashley
night, buddy.
Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so
Now,
badly.
do we know if
I asked, what about all
the people that were shot at the rally, if
and
Trump
people that she
visited
allowed
those
to pour
people?
in? She was the border czar, remember
Like
that.
the family members?
She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because
we knew
knows
that
what a
was
bad
going to be
job
an
they've
easy
done.
one, so we didn't
What
do
about
that one.
those people? What are they going to be
I think
prosecuted?
cats and dogs
One of
was the
these
winner.
people from countries all over the world, not just South
Well,
America.
that was a winner because
They're
that was the
coming in
last
from
one that you
all
needed.
over the world, David, all over the world, and crime rates are down all over the world.
Well, no,
because
it
of
was
it.
ducks,
But one of
cats and
David,
ducks.
One of those people
Doesn't
gonna be
matter.
prosecuted. One of the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted, or in Seattle. They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. One of those people
True,
going to be
yeah.
prosecuted.
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret
That's
about
what they
you did
say.
on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the
be the
mayor
best.
of Washington, D.C.
We already have that
and
one
the mayor
down.
put it back
No
in writing,
regrets.
as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it.
I need
And
Trump
again,
to
it wasn't
talk
done by
about the
me. It
most
was
fair
done by others.
election,
I
or
said,
to bring up
I'd like to
something
give
about
you
Christians
10,000 National Guard or
Christianity.
soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape.
Oh, this is
It
January
would have
6th that he's
never
talking about.
happened if
Yeah.
Nancy
Yeah.
Pelosi and the mayor
Yeah,
of
Pelosi
Washington
admitted,
did
yeah.
their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
Yeah.
The question was about
Pelosi
you as president,
admitted that
not
she was
about former
responsible
Speaker
for
Pelosi.
security.
But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
Were you hiding in the same room as AOC?
Elect. I was also enacting. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob
Oh, really?
to attack our
Fact
nation's
check.
capital.
Some
Patriotically heard.
say it
Our
was a
nation's
mostly
capital. On
peaceful
that day,
protest.
140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached.
Man,
for
this is
exactly that
despicable that
reason.
she
I
is.
didn't.
This is not
I
an
should have put Jan
isolated
6 on
situation.
the.
Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches. spewing
What
anti-Semitic-
Are those your people, Kanoa?
The president didn't at the time say there were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia The president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say,
we'll never
forget.
Have to
go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach.
But we
that
banned
is
your Twitter account when
the
you were saying that
foundations of
stuff.
our
Yeah.
democracy,
Now,
'cause you don't
if
like
you
the
notice,
outcome. And be
when
clear,
Trump is
on that
listening to
point,
Kamala,
Donald Trump, the
like his facial
candidate,
expression
has said in this
rarely
election, there will be a
changes, and
bloodbath.
Kamala keeps looking
if
at
this
Trump
and the outcome of this election
to
is
see,
not
like,
to his liking. Let's
if
turn
there's
the
any
page
facial
on this. Let's not
recognition
go
on
back.
that.
Let's chart a
What-
course for the future and not
Hawaiian
go
Lives Matter.
backwards to
Oh.
the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people.
Now, when Trump
they
talks,
covered it. If they
does he
go
look
an
over
extra
to
sentence, they
Kamala
will see it was perfect.
at all?
It was debunked in
No.
almost every newspaper.
Yeah,
but
Kamala
they still
multiple
bring it
times,
up,
she
just
looks
like they
over at
bring
Trump.
2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this: you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her
She's been
sign
so
a bill
bad.
to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide.
This is
In the
talking
past
about
couple of weeks
2020
leading
election.
up to this debate, you have
we
said,
go.
quote, you lost by a whisker,
on, Trump.
that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you
Yep, I
now
just need to
acknowledging
say-
that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge
It was
that
the
at all.
most
I said
fair
that
election.
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president
that?
has ever gotten.
Bottle
I was
cap?
told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent.
you just
we need
putting
two
bottle
things.
caps
we need
on your-
walls, we need, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad, and a lot of these illegal
Kamala's
immigrants
gonna
coming in.
say
Come on,
that
say it's
there.
rigged,
to
say
get
it's a
them to
fraud.
vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these
Trump.
pieces of video. I
Yeah,
didn't
just
detect
say
the
rigged.
sarcasm, lost
Oh,
by
wait, are
whisper,
we allowed to
didn't
say that
quite
for
make it.
YouTube?
And we should just point out here, as
Say
clarification,
it's
and
the
you know
most
this,
fair
you and your
election.
allies,
Say it's
60
the most
cases
fair
in front of many
election.
judges, many of them
No judge
Republican.
looked at it.
That's why I
They
put on
said
mine,
we
I
didn't
put
have
Of
quote.
course,
standing.
this guy said
That's
that he
the other
watched
thing.
when Trump
They said we didn't
said
have standing, a
sarcastically, and
technicality.
guys
Can
like,
you
I
imagine
didn't
a
see it was
system
sarcastic.
where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show
Netflix
you
special,
Wisconsin,
Comedy
and
Hour.
I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have
don't
right
follow
now
God's law.
is we have a nation
That is
in
true.
decline, and they have put it into decline.
Because we
have a
sacrifice our
nation
children
that
and we don't
is
follow God's
dying,
law.
David.
Mr.
Right.
President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by whiskers. So he still believes he did not lose the election. That was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump.
No, Trump did admit that he said it, but he said it sarcastically.
When I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing
Trump got
that.
apprenticed.
But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And
you just never been to Europe, right? Is that what it was?
I have talked with military leaders.
She's like, I've been all over the world.
And they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men. They call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need
that was one of the ones I did not have
as
on
president.
Mine.
They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him.
Not yet.
I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president.
That is
but
true.
When this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate.
Orange man is scary to other countries.
If you weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did,
according to other countries, Orange man is bad.
He got 14 million votes,
Truly.
and they threw him out of office.
He's scary.
And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates
Scarier
her.
than
He can't stand
Winnie the
her.
Pooh.
But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote,
"What up,
Israel has a right to
Josh?
defend itself," but you added, quote, "It matters
What's up,
how."
Josh? How you doing, buddy?
International humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead.
We allow for the Trump the most fair election.
Remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate.
Speaking of rigged, you rigged your bingo sheet.
Well, let's understand how
I think I have one of the ones that
October
Chad
7th,
did.
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
That's one of mine.
slaughtered.
Yeah, how did I know they were going to say it in that order?
Yeah.
Many of them young people
I'm
who
a
were
prophet.
simply attending a
Sweet,
concert.
Josh. Sweet, sweet.
Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does
Yeah,
so
we're
matters.
playing a debate
Because
bingo.
it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
Yeah, different
Children,
topics.
mothers.
You can't
What
really see
we know
it, but
is
yeah.
that this war
talking
must
about, like,
end. It must
things that they would
end
mention.
immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal. And
What
we
the
need
heck is pass the
hostages
torch?
out. And so we will continue
What is
to
that
work
supposed to mean?
around the clock on that. Work around the clock,
Oh.
also
She's been
understanding
saying that a
that
lot,
we
except
must
now.
chart a course for a two-state
I
solution.
guess she knew that people would be
And
playing
in
bingo
that
about it.
solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel,
up,
and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself.
That's nifty. I
in
like that.
particular, as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
President
I'm
Trump,
jealous
how
of my
would
beard,
you
too.
negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages
My
out
mustache,
and
though,
prevent the killing of more
I tried to
innocent
fix my
civilians in
mustache up,
Gaza?
but
If I
for
were
whatever
president,
reason,
it would have never
it wanted
showed
to
it.
droop.
If I were president, Russia would have never.
It could also just
ever,
be the angle
I
where
know
it just
Putin
looks
very
bad,
well.
but
He would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years.
yeah,
have
normally
gone
the
into
mustache
Ukraine
is a little bit
and
higher.
killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden,
I need
she
to
hates Israel.
bring
She
up
wouldn't even
Rumble
meet
chat
with
because we are
Netanyahu
on
when
Rumble,
he went to
but
Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel.
I just put the thing in my ear and all I hear is, we're blowing up
It would have
Arabs.
never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump.
I don't think I have that one on my bingo
$300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
You gave
Look
them
at what's
weapons.
happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even
on Amendment
becoming
3,
president.
that was
he says you hate Israel.
there was a
That's absolutely not true. I have
Missouri Supreme
my
Court
entire
judge that
career in
ruled that it
life
was
supported
unconstitutional, and
Israel
then our
the Israeli
Secretary of
people.
State
He knows that he's trying to again
decertified it, and then there was a
distract
Supreme Court
from the
hearing this
reality,
morning,
which is,
and
it
they
is
ruled
very
that
well known
that it's
that
going to be
Donald Trump
that it has
is
to be
weak and
recertified.
wrong on
So
national
it is
security
going
and
to be
foreign
on the
policy.
ballot
It is
this
well
November,
known
sadly.
that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well
Wait, when did
known
Trump say that he wanted to be a dictator?
Said of Putin that he
Oh,
can
yeah.
do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un.
Oh, love letters. Wow. Did he send them too? Spritz a little bit of cologne? Oh, Kim Jong-un will love this smell.
So clear. They can manipulate you with flattery.
Yes.
And that is why so
Rocket
many military
Man.
leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris,
It's going so slow. What is it
She's
saying?
the one that caused it.
Oh,
That's weak
Kim
for national security
Ada!
by allowing every nation last month for the year 168 different countries.
I want to make it
sending
clear.
people into our country. Their crime
I
rates
said
are way
in the
down.
letter, no homo.
In
Yes.
last week, said I hope she wins. And I
Dear
think he meant
Kim.
it,
We're gonna get banned
because
on
what he's gotten
YouTube
away
again.
with is
Dear Kim,
absolutely
no
incredible.
Gamma
It
Eta
wouldn't
on this
happen
letter.
with me.
By the way,
leaders of
you
other
look great.
countries think that they're weak and
I saw that you lost a lot of weight.
and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question.
Yeah, love
Why
letters.
does
He
Biden
called
go
Kim
in and kill
Jong-un
the
fat.
Keystone
Yeah.
Pipeline
during a summit.
The single biggest deal that
Look at all
Russia's
these
ever
thin
made,
bodies
Nord Stream 2,
around,
the
and
biggest
then
pipeline
he
anywhere in the
made
world
a
going to
gesturing
Germany and all over Europe.
look over
Because
at
they're weak
Kim.
and they're ineffective.
Like,
and
yeah,
Biden,
but I'm
by
not
the
talking
way,
about
has
you.
paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues
That was
to
when
get to.
Kim Jong
We'll be
Un
back with much more of
looked
this
more like
historic
Winnie the Pooh.
ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Alrighty.
ABC News presidential debate will continue after this.
It will continue after this.
Here, let me change my head if I'm going to be on the main screen so we don't get blocked. Let me put it in green.
It was a regular day for 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
She went to meet her mom at a bowling church league, but she
Let's
never
go
makes it
ahead
in.
and mute the debate thing right now. So, how is everyone doing?
All right, so that's the thing's muted because we can still hear it on our thing.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
it's muted on the
All right,
stream.
real quick. All right, so that at least when it came to the abortion topic, I kind of knew that it was going to go there, but Trump actually did way better than I thought he was going to do on that because I was like, if Trump wants to try and win people over, he'd be smart if he didn't give any personal opinion and didn't really focus on that and just stick to the lie of I brought it back to the states. In case people don't know, it has actually always been in the power of the states, and they always had the power to do so. We've done talks on this so many times and showed how that whole like they gave it back to the states thing is actually false. It has always been in the states' power, and at any time they could have ignored Roe v. Wade because the Supreme Court does not make law.
Right.
Missouri knows this because Missouri rejects the Supreme Court ruling on multiple things when it came to certain gun laws and marijuana laws. They said you don't make law, we can reject that. But when it came to Roe v. Wade, all of a sudden they were like, we have to listen to it. It's a lie. It's just what they do to get votes. But I said it would be smart if Trump kept just stuck on that topic and said, hey, I did this, and he didn't bring up his personal opinion, which I think he didn't bring up. He started bringing up his opinion on IVF, and I was like, and he's completely lost, and that has to do with that's the pro-life movement's fault that that he's listening to them because they got him all messed up. Because everybody forgets, like when he first started running, he had a good actual abolition stance. And then the pro-life, he's like, no exceptions. Here's what it is.
Yeah.
Because he's like, it's a human life, so therefore it should have equal rights and protection. He said that like one time, and then all the pro-life movement on his cabinet was like, no, that's not what we want. And then he's been confused ever since.
Yep.
So at this point, him giving his personal opinion like he's done multiple times has just gotten him into trouble. So I said if he gets asked about abortion, he should keep away from his personal opinion. And he did a decent job at doing that. He almost got caught up with it, but it was actually Kamala saved him by interrupting him on that thing. But ultimately that's where he's gonna if it is the most fair election, and there's nothing in play there. I think that would be the topic that if he's gonna lose it, it'll be over the issue of abortion. What other things that were brought up that you guys knew that they were going to bring up, or we thought that they were going to bring up? Was there anything for you that you were surprised? Or
I think that Kamala did a really good prep on her part. I think she's got some really good speeches. I do. It does feel like a lot of it's rehearsed. Like I think she has a lot of liners that she practiced and is saying. At least that's what it feels like.
Well, yeah.
Going by how she performs off the cuff and how she like performs with saying like the speeches that she's rehearsed, it feels like she's saying a lot of rehearsed things.
Well, and that's ultimately a good debating strategy. If you if you can plan what your opponent's going, yeah.
Anyway, I think she's performing better than I thought she would.
Yeah. What was the one thing that she brought up? I mean, of course they attacked the Trump with the what was it on the January 6th stuff?
Yeah.
What was something else that she kept bringing up? Oh, the overseas stuff. Man, what did she bring up that we were all laughing going, what was she bringing up?
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
I know, I was confused too for a second. I was like, wait, why are they bringing this part up?
There were a few things that I was like, oh man, I hadn't heard that one before. You know?
Yeah.
Usually it's always like the same.
We had paper ready of the same stuff that they normally say that we were playing bingo off of.
Hit, like 90% of the stuff that
was Kamala.
was like the stuff we thought that she was gonna say.
Yeah. Yep, that's what I won off of was her. I needed it was the 3 that I had that I ended up winning on was the 3 was Kamala, and then it was 1 that was Trump.
See, I checkerboarded my
All right, they're coming back.
Oh, I just did random, so I was just writing all over the place.
No wonder you won.
It has been the position of the Biden administration that we must
I
defend
know,
Ukraine
dude.
from Russia.
I wrote random, and I was like, man, this might
democracy,
ruin me, but I was
it's in
like,
America's
whatever.
best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins,
Oh,
he may
are we
be
back?
emboldened to move
Yeah,
even
we
further
are back.
into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight.
You solve this war in 24 hours. How would you do?
that?
I
And
would
wanna
tell
ask you a
him
very simple question
that
tonight.
I'm almost
win
gonna
this
touch
war?
the button,
I want the
Putin.
war to
I'll
stop.
do it.
I want to
What's
save
that?
lives
What's that?
that are being uselessly.
We're gonna save
people
lives.
being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse
Yeah.
than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more.
Somebody said that
Because
the
they don't
YouTube
ask
couldn't
Europe,
hear.
which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are.
Can you hear us on
They're in
YouTube?
for $150 billion.
Yes, if somebody's
less
there,
because
comment on
Biden
YouTube
and
if you can hear us.
Don't have the courage to ask
If you don't comment,
Europe, like I did with
you will.
NATO.
Yeah, if you don't
am-
comment anything, then
Hundreds of
well,
billions of
I
dollars
know
when I
that
said,
they
either
can
you
hear
pay
us
up
or
we're
hear
not
me.
going to protect you anymore. So
We'll
that's
make sure they
maybe
can
one
hear
of the
me and
reasons they
chat.
don't like
Yeah.
me as much as they like weak people.
It probably
But
was Chad because
you
I
take a
didn't
look
have
at
this
what's
slider up.
happening. We're in for
didn't notice that one.
250 to 275
So everything that you said
billion.
before.
They're into
He could be muted.
150. They should be
Well, yeah, we
forced
did make a joke
to
about that
equalize.
earlier.
With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I
Josh
have a good
says that he can hear.
relationship, and
Sweet.
They respect
Can you hear
the
Chad?
president, okay, they respect
Can
me.
you
They
hear
don't
me?
respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even. try
Biden
and
can't
get it.
speak to
That
anybody,
is a
yeah.
war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If
Did
I
anybody
win,
have a Biden
when I'm
said?
president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other.
I
I'll
have
get 'em
as a
together.
Kamala,
That war would have
Biden
never
said,
happened. And in
under
fact,
mine.
when I saw
But I guess it
Probably
doesn't
Biden
matter
said.
who
I
says
left.
it.
Unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw
Biden
him
said,
building up
Biden
soldiers, he did it after I left.
Let's
I
keep
said,
him
oh,
basement.
he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III,
keeps saying
and we have a
David.
president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him
That's
out of a
going up on the hat.
campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he a president?
Wow.
We have a president
Like a
that doesn't
dog.
know he's
Like a
alive.
dog.
time is
The
up.
dogs that they
just to clarify
eat.
in the crowd,
Now, does that
do you believe it's in
count
the
as
US
passing
best
the
interest
torch?
for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for
She's like,
Ukraine.
I have Biden on the phone.
As commander in
Did it,
chief, if
Joe?
elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Oh, does that count as a
reason that
torch
Donald
pass?
Trump says that
Oh.
this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried
was giving you
through
money.
force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania.
Does he call the president?
And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine.
Would he though?
Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO.
Best friends, they say.
And what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship
partiality,
with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
That's a hearty meal right there.
Something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
The way I like
to. He would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
That's essentially Trump saying, "Woman, know your place."
He's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that.
Give me the talking over.
Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started.
Facial expression
3
just
days
changes
later,
way
he
too
went
much.
in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid.
Sure.
They said the wrong things. That war should have
Trump,
never started. She was
say they're the
emissary.
worst. Say
sent
they
her
are
in
the
to
worst
negotiate
president.
with Zelensky and Putin.
Trump's facial
And she
expression
did.
does
And the war
change
started
every
3
so
days
often, but
later.
not as
her-
often
And
as
that's the kind of
Kamala's.
talent we
I need
have
him
with
to
her.
reference her
She's
as her
worse
being
than
an
Biden.
Indian.
In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history
There it is.
Vice president in the history of our country. But
Worst
let me tell you
president.
something. She's a horrible negotiator.
Terrible.
They sent her in
The
to
worst.
negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin
Trump
did the
says worst
invasion.
president.
President
All
Trump,
right.
thank you.
As soon
You
as
forgot
they left.
something. You said she went
I
to
just
Yeah.
have
Vice
double
President
bingo
Harris,
now.
Have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify
Nice.
Adrian caught
Yet
up.
again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming
And
from this
in
fellow.
one
I need a voice change. Come
Bunch of
on.
lies.
In
When
one
I
swoop.
went to meet with President Zelensky,
I need a
and met
passing the
with him over
torch
5
and
times.
a voice change.
The reality is, it has been.
It does
about
feel like her
standing
voice
as
has been
America
more
always
she's
should,
trying to mimic
as a
Obama,
leader,
doesn't it? Like,
upholding
doesn't it? I don't know.
international rules and
Maybe that's just
norms.
me.
As a
I just been
leader
ignoring
who
her the whole
shows
time.
strength,
Was there a
understanding
Biden
that
says?
the alliances we have around the world are dependent
Was there a
on
Biden
our
said?
ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because
No,
you
it's just
adore
in
strongmen
quotations.
instead of caring about
That's a Kamala.
democracy.
Oh.
And
There's
that
another
is
gay joke
very
there.
much what is at stake here.
That you adore
President
strong
of the
men.
United States is commander-in-chief, and the American
No
people
homo.
have a right to rely
My beloved Rocket
on a
Boy.
president
If you're gonna
who
quote me, do it right. I
understands the
clearly
significance of
said
America's role
no
and
homo.
responsibility in terms
So
of
if
ensuring that there is
Kamala
stability
says
and ensuring we
how,
stand up for
like,
our
asks
principles
a
and
question,
not sell them for the,
like,
for the
how is he
benefit
gonna
of
do this?
personal
How is he gonna
flattery.
do that? Is
You
that
talked
her
about
being
Ukraine and
Indian?
Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
How?
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
There they
He
go.
got
If
these
nobody had that
countries,
one, we
the
do
28
now.
countries at
They
the time,
said this
to pay
about
up. He
me.
said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO.
I think we're all tied up with two.
ripped off by European
wins.
nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before. If you don't pay, we're
Yeah, I
not
don't
going
have
to
anything
protect
like
you.
that.
Otherwise, we
Trump.
would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan.
definitely
It came
would've
up in
gotten
the
this.
first hour of the debate, and we witnessed
It's fine.
a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan.
That's what
I do
Trump
want to ask
said.
the Vice President,
The Rocket
do you
Boy.
believe you bear
You're
any
fine.
responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
I know. It's just like you
Well,
had
I
a
will tell you, I
romance.
agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of
Say
Afghanistan.
Biden said.
4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war.
Give me a passing the
And
torch.
as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century, But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, And
We're getting
the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And
I mean, I get that, like that trade or whatever, but they also like traded a basketball player for the guy they made Lord of War about.
He does not
Like,
again appreciate the role
Facts.
and responsibility
Can we
Point.
talk about
of the
that?
President of the
Yeah.
United States
Point for Chad.
to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems.
You're gonna die
And he
like
said,
a
why do you
dog.
send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had
It's the
nobody
same
killed.
picture I
We
sent
did
to
have an agreement
Putin
negotiated by
that
Mike
would stop the
Pompeo.
war.
It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left.
Wow.
Why'd you send me a picture of my
$85
house?
billion
Figure
worth
it out.
of brand new
Figure it
beautiful
out, Abdul.
military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said
blew
you
it.
have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was
If I get in
terminated
office,
by
I'm going to
us
send him another
because
picture.
They didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the
I wanna
worst
move on.
withdrawal, and in
No.
my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country.
Oh,
Mr.
boy.
President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago.
Here we go, boys.
To be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
Say she's Indian.
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
Say Indian.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out.
Say
And
Indian.
I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president
We're
who
getting close
has
to a voice change.
consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of
Something
us know
about,
that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we
Endangering
don't want
democracy. I feel
this
that's
kind
coming
of
up too.
approach that is just
Oh, you should have
constantly
that one
trying
marked
to
up.
divide
Yeah, that one's already
us,
done.
and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned land. He owned buildings. And
Is she
he
trying to
was
play the
investigated
bad
because
landowner?
he
See, this is what I'm
refused to
talking
rent
about. Like right now, she's off the cuff.
property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took
She's
out a
like-
full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend.
Yeah, we'd love to have better that than that and better than this.
We don't want a leader who
but we have that and this.
Yes. We would love to have a theocracy underneath God, but unfortunately.
Kamala, please.
Tell me.
Wait, is it Kamala or Kamala? Even she can't make up her own mind on her own name.
How we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people. Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all
us a voice change.
have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
One that
Vice President Harris, thank you.
God's law
President Trump,
says
this is now your third time.
This is the most
hate and division. Didn't Kamala advocate for the peaceful protests?
They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said, going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years,
well, not
40 years ago. Because
never
there's
heard that
nothing
one.
now.
Well,
I
not
built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger,
Is that like
better, and
well done?
stronger.
Yeah.
But they're destroying
Put
our
it on a
economy.
flag.
They have no
Bigger,
idea
better,
what a good
stronger.
economy is. Their oil
Daft Punk.
policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know
She
the
is
gentleman, she
Biden.
says.
Come on,
She
give
is
us a
Biden.
passing the torch.
The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad,
She is Biden.
and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Here we go, passing the torch.
One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small
Josh,
businesses,
no,
which is why I have
not
a
an
plan.
actual
Let's
full
talk
support
about our plans
for an abortion ban.
and let's compare the plans. I have a plan
Trump even
to
said
give
that
startup
he would have the
businesses
exceptions
$50,000 tax deduction
for rape, incest,
to
life of
pursue
mother.
their ambitions,
And he's
their
for IVF.
innovation, their
Yeah.
ideas, their hard work.
So
I
not
have
not
plan,
a full
$6,000
abortion
for
ban,
young
just
families
one that
for the
is
first year of your child's
restricted
life to help
and
you
regulated.
in that most critical stage of your child's development.
Granted,
I
Kamala
have
would
a
be
plan
even worse.
That is about
But
allowing people to be able to pursue what has been
as far as the
fleeting in terms of
practicality
the
of it,
American dream by offering a help with
They
down
would
payment of
essentially be the same.
$25,000 down payment assistance
man.
for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation
That's a
I believe,
terrible
David,
plan.
that
Right,
people
how is
really
that
want
gonna help?
tonight, as
It's going to
opposed
help
a
the banks be like,
conversation
oh,
that is
sweet, we're going to make
constantly about
$25,000
belittling
more. Let's just jump up the
and
price.
name-calling.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can afford
Let's
it.
turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
It's going to be a lot like when they
President Trump,
subsidize
Look at him.
colleges and then they
They're not,
just
they
like
muted him.
To defund the
Oh,
police,
here we go, they unmuted.
she has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania
Fracking.
or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has said
No, I'm
something.
sorry.
Yeah, I wonder why
that
she's
I
wanna-
need to respond to.
trying to
sorry,
appeal
we're
to the
gonna- we're gonna
moderates
move
here.
on.
I don't
One
know.
time
To what he
Weird.
said
President Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as
You like how,
Obamacare. You failed to accomplish
you notice
that.
how they're
You
trying
now
not
say you're
to
gonna keep Obamacare,
seem
quote, unless we
partial.
can do something much better.
Because
Last
they-
month you
they
said,
wouldn't
quote, "We're
allow-
working
at
on
that
it."
moment,
So
they wouldn't
tonight,
allow
9
Kamala
years after you first started
address
running,
something.
Do you have a
I'm
plan?
for it.
And can you tell us what
But-
it is?
Obamacare
But
was
for the most
lousy
part, she has
healthcare.
been getting
Always
some of the
was.
softballs.
It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I
Theonomy.
inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be?
To this day, Obamacare
or do I let
is
it rot?
still something that
And
is
I felt I had an
listed for
obligation, even
each
though
state.
politically it
It
would have
is
been good to
titled
just
or
let it
nicknamed
rot and let it
Obamacare.
go away. I decided, and I told my
You're not
people,
forced
the top people,
to
and they're
have it.
very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never
Save it
going
or
to
let
be
it
great,
rot.
and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now.
So you don't have a plan.
We come
I have a
up with
plan to make a
We'll
plan.
only change it if we come up with something
I'm not
that's
president
better
right
and
now.
less expensive. And
I
there
don't
are
have to make a plan.
concepts
I'm
and
not president.
options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in
thought that counts.
2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow
that
the
a
Affordable
different-
Care Act. But I'll
that a
get to that,
different
Lindsay. I
voice?
just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made.
Nothing
I've made
else.
very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the
Well,
Affordable
if you're
Care
bringing
Act.
forth-
Right, I was like, is that
times.
gonna
I
help
was a
her
senator
case?
at the time.
I have never
when
heard
I
that
will
she's
never
a gun.
forget
Right.
the early
Right.
morning hours.
Well, if you're
when
I
if
did
you're
not have
bringing
that on my
forth,
bingo.
vote
if
of the
you're
United
bringing
States Senate.
forth
And
laws
the late, great
for
John
guns
McCain,
that make
who
it
you
harder
have
and harder and harder
disparaged
for a law-abiding
as being
citizen to own a gun, then you are
don't
essentially
like him, you said,
taking
at
their
the
guns
time
away.
because
Yep.
he got
She
caught.
brings her
He
gun
was
when
an
she's buying her
American
cocaine.
hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget
and then
that
she
night.
tosses it into the
Walked
House
onto the
plan
Senate
at
floor
the
and
White
said,
House. At the
"No,
White House.
you don't.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
According to
No, you don't
Biden.
get rid of
Right,
the Affordable
yeah.
Care Act. You have no plan.
It was not
And what the
Hunter.
Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability
was probably
of insurance
Kamala.
companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
Listen, Fat.
I don't have to tell people watching tonight. You remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny
But it's like, oh,
if
well,
a child had
blame the
asthma,
minority.
if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a
You know what's
year.
funny
We
is that
raised it
something
in
that-
other
President,
places.
we
That's
will
something
do
that
for
Trump
all
was
people,
trying to do,
understanding that the
and they didn't even
value
try
I
it
bring to
before.
this
Right.
is
And
that
the thing is
access to
with
healthcare
insulin,
should be a right.
I can go to
and
Walmart
not just a
and
privilege
buy
of those who
insulin
can
for
afford it.
$25
And
per vial.
The plan has to be
But it's not
to
the
strengthen
best
the
kind of
Affordable Care
insulin.
Act, not get rid of it.
It's good
Pass
enough
it
It's
to
pro-law.
get you
some
by.
Where Donald
China.
Trump stands on that.
I want to move to
But
an issue
the-
that's
the
important
higher
for a
echelon
lot
Made
of
a
insulin.
mistake. Number
The
one,
costlier insulin.
John McCain fought
I think that's what they're talking
Obamacare
about,
for
capping
10
that at
years.
35, but I
But it
still
wasn't
doubt that.
only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare. Much less money. But she won't improve private
But you also know what's
insurance for people,
interesting
private
is
medical
if you do have
insurance.
insurance
That's
and you
another
go
thing she
to a
doesn't want to do.
doctor,
People are paying
the
privately
doctor
for
has to send off a
that
form
have
to
worked
the
hard
insurance
and
company
made money, and
to
they want to have
see
private.
if
She wants everybody
that
to be on
procedure or that
government
medicine is
insurance where you
necessary
wait
if it's
6
covered,
months for an operation that you
if
need
that person
President
actually
Trump,
needs it.
thank you. We have another issue.
So
that
in a
we'd
way,
like to
the
get
insurance
to.
company
Important
is
for a number
practicing
of
medicine,
Americans, in particular younger
which they're not
voters, and
qualified
that's
to do.
climate change. President Trump, with regard to the
This is where
environment,
Trump's
you
gonna
say that
probably
we
fail
have
on.
to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced
Well, the climate
these
is
extreme weather
changing, yes,
occurrences,
but
who now is either being denied
not
home
the
insurance or it's
ideology
being
that
jacked
she
up.
has.
You ask anybody who has been the
Cow
victim
farts
of
and all
what
that stuff,
means in
all that
terms of
stupidity.
losing their
No.
home, having nowhere to go. We know
Temperatures
that we
are
can
changing
actually
across
deal
the
with
board
this
globally,
issue. The
yes.
young people of America care
But
deeply
that's all right.
about this issue. And I
Temperatures
am proud
change.
that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion
Sometimes you have
in
to
a clean
bring your
energy
reptiles in
economy,
sooner in the
while
year.
we have also increased
Or later in
domestic
the year.
gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs
stupid
while I
smile
have
on
been
his
vice
face.
president. We have
He's like,
invested
"I'm about
in
to
clean
surprise
energy
her."
to the point that
No,
we are opening
well, she's got
up
to defend
factories
her,
around
like,
the world.
her,
Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs.
the
He lost
environment stuff
manufacturing
or the
jobs.
climate change
And
stuff,
I'm
but she's also
proud
gonna like
to have
stay
the
on
endorsement
fracking and
of the
stuff too.
United
So
Auto
she's kind of
Workers and
like,
Sean Fain,
Yeah.
who also know
Isn't
that part
fracking,
of
like, worse
building
for the
a
environment?
clean energy economy includes investing
Supposedly.
in
What's that?
American made
Is fracking
products,
supposedly good or
American
worse for the environment?
automobiles. It includes
it's supposedly
growing
not
what
good,
we
but
can
it
do around
is
American
drastically
manufacturing
better
and
than
opening
coal.
up auto plants,
And
not raising
drastically
them like
better
happened under
than
Donald
It's
Trump.
a lot
President
better
Harris,
energy.
thank you.
It's
It
like
didn't
the
happen
it's
under
the
Donald
most
Trump. Let me just
well
tell you, they lost
outside of nuclear, it's
10,000
probably like one of the
manufacturing
best.
jobs this last month.
And
It's
the
going,
process of
they're all leaving.
fracking, it's
They're
less
building big
destructive
auto plants in
than
Mexico.
getting materials
in many
for
cases
rechargeable batteries,
owned by
solar
China.
cells.
They're building
China.
these massive plants,
So,
and they think they're going to
the
sell
rare
their
earth
cars
metals
into the
that
United
make up
States
these
because
rechargeable
of
batteries,
these
like
people.
for
What
electric
they have given to
vehicles
China
and
is
for
unbelievable.
solar cells.
But we're not going to let that. We'll put
fracking
tariffs
is
on those
less
cars so they
destructive.
can't come into our country.
So
because
she's
they
okay
will
with
kill the
solar
United Auto
and
Workers
electric
and
vehicles,
any
but she's
auto
not
worker,
okay with
whether it's
fracking?
in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions
He's
of
too
dollars.
old
He's
to go
afraid
after
do it.
people.
Between him and his son. They get all this money from
It's
Ukraine.
flashes.
They get all this money from all of these different
I would love
countries.
to have a hat
and then
like
you
that.
wonder why
Dude,
is
that's
he
what I
so
said. Everybody's
loyal
getting
to
hats like
this
this
one,
for the
that
next
one,
one.
Ukraine, China.
Yeah, by the way,
Why
we
is
are
he-
going to
why did he get
have
$3.5
a
million
election
from the mayor of
stream
Moscow's wife? Why did
for
he
the
get?
primaries.
Why did she pay him $3.5 million?
So
This is a
So
crooked
stay tuned for that,
administration, and they're
November
selling our
5th.
country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates in
Oh,
a historic
fracking,
night, this
better
ABC
and
News
cheaper.
presidential debate
Yeah.
from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Upside down.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute that.
China.
China. China.
All right, another break.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Cares, comments, concerns. Go. China.
Yes,
I'm very
yes, Josh. It will be
concerned.
on YouTube. It'll be on Facebook. We will live stream it, just like how we're live streaming this now, multi-stream. So YouTube, Facebook, Rumble.
Ramble.
We normally multi-stream on Instagram as well, but due to Instagram's format, it being a vertical screen, it doesn't work out too well. So we normally just suggest people go to. Oh goodness, belches. That's coffee burps. But yeah, go on, Kanoa.
Cannoli.
What was,
You're the chosen one.
what was I saying? I don't know what to
He said
like.
comments, concerns.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned with our country. And we need to repent. See, some of the stuff that they were bringing up, I talked about this on a live panel on TikTok a couple days ago, is like, because people kept asking, oh, what would, to fix the economy and stuff like that. And I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that God has in his law. So while we're on break, I'll do a couple quick book recommendations for everybody who's wanting to understand
I'm a
God's
civil
law.
library fleet.
God's Law Made Easy by Kenneth Gentry. That is always one that I recommend for people to. It's a good start. It's a small book.
It's also on audio.
Is it on audio now?
Oh no.
No, I was gonna say it's not on audio.
Kindle.
Yeah, no, it's on Kindle, but not on Audible books. But God's Law Made Easy. That is a great way to get started. To know that God's law does apply. Is still applying today in the New Covenant as it was always meant to be. Examples of this is we see Paul uses it in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, 8 through 10, where he quotes an animal law, but he takes the general equity, or what is also known as the principle of God's law, and shows how it applies. And all over, anytime the New Covenant is brought up, God's law is brought up with it. It says God's law will be on our hearts. So God's law is always made for today, and we need to learn how to apply it to have a true and just society. So Christians, we need to learn how God's law applies. And a book on how it applies, a good book on that, besides the commentaries by R.J. Rushdoony, The Victim's Rights by Gary North. It's a pretty thick book. I think it was like 300 pages. Yeah, 300 pages. And this shows how God's law can be applied today in society. And so I definitely recommend those books. If you want, for those who are not book readers, but you can listen to, they have this one on Audible, and other ways to listen to, and that's By This Standard by Greg Bonson. By This Standard by Greg Bonson. That's a good intro to show that God's law is made for today. Another one, if you're wanting to learn about a little bit of the American history, that has to deal with, like, Christians who are trying to fix America right off the bat. It's a book called Founding Sins by Joseph Moore. And that's a pretty good book too. It talks about how the Covenanters during the Constitution Convention for the United States, that they came in. The Covenanters were like, "Hey, there's something wrong here. You don't have Christ as king at the." They're like, "You're trying to bring in some of God's laws, but they're like, you're not bringing all of them." They said, "You need to put Christ as king at the top if this is going to work." And they said, "And what are these? What is it called? These amendments or constitutions that refer to slavery." They caught that right off the bat and said, "Hey, it says that you will abolish the slave trade in 20 years. They said, "No, it needs to say that it is a sin and needs to be abolished immediately." So that goes into stuff like that. So that's some good book to recommend to show. I do recommend. There's plenty other books on this stuff like that, but Rushdoony, and his commentary on God's law is fantastic for that as well. Gary North has one as well, if you guys are wanting to know how those laws apply today and how we can use them. So I highly recommend that you study up on that if you want to know how we can fix our country and make it better, because I believe that the God who created the universe knows how to run a country, and he gave us laws to be able to do so.
All right, debate is back on.
Let's go.
I just got to find my mouse now. There it is.
Ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
What is an opportunity
I believe
economy according
in
to
what we
Kamala?
can do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general,
to have the right to
a United
murder
States senator,
babies.
and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people.
Oh, that's her
And I'll tell you, as a
opportunity
prosecutor,
economy.
I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever
Sure
ask
about
them,
that? No,
are you okay?
Sorry.
And that's the kind of president we need right now.
Oh, what about
someone
all the
who cares
what
about
about the millions
you
of
and is
babies
not
that
putting
you allowed to
themselves
be murdered?
first.
What about the
I
people that
intend
you
to be a president
imprison
for all
so that you can have a
Americans
workforce in
and
California?
focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years.
What about
to build
in the
back up our
healthcare in
country by
California
investing right now
that allows
in you, the
for
American people?
paid sex
Vice
change
President
for prisoners?
Harris, thank you.
What about
President
the weapons
Trump?
you left behind over
So she just
the
started
Middle
by
East
saying she's going to do
that they're
this, she's
using
going to
to
do
punish
that, she's
people
going to do
now?
all these wonderful things.
Yup.
Why hasn't she done it?
There we
She's
go.
been there for
Oh
That's
my
what I said. He
gosh.
needs to bring that up.
They've had
You're in
3.5
office. Why aren't you
years
doing
to
it?
fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why
But now-
hasn't she done it? She should
'Cause then she
leave
couldn't
right
run on
now,
it. No,
go
I'm just
down
kidding.
to the beautiful
And again,
White
that's
House, go to the
creating
Capitol,
legitimate
get
jobs.
everyone together and do the
Uh,
things
because
you want to do,
with,
but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that
with
the American
VID-19,
people don't believe in. You believe
there were
in
no jobs
things
actually
like,
created.
we're not
Well,
gonna
there were
frack,
some,
we're not gonna take
but
fossil
most of the
fuel, we're
jobs
not gonna
that
do
were
things that are
created
going to
were the
make
ones
this
that
country
were
strong,
originally
whether
lost.
You like it or not. Germany tried that.
Nobody
and
talked
within
about
1
tax
year,
on
they were
tips.
back to building
Yeah.
normal
Good thing I didn't put it
energy
down.
plants. We're
Yeah,
not
right.
ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughing. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't
They call
understand
me
what
and they
happened to
just
us as a
laughing.
nation. We're not
Yes.
a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on.
And according to
We have
Kamala,
wars
he
going on in
exchanges
the
love
Middle East.
letters
We have
with
wars
guns.
going
Hello?
on with Russia and
Putin,
Ukraine.
is that you?
We're going to end up in a third world
That's a
war,
hearty
and it'll
Russian
be a
laugh,
war
Putin.
Like no other because
I'm
of
gonna send a
nuclear
picture of your
weapons, the
house.
power of
You'll know
weaponry.
why.
I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan.
I said
See,
too.
that's
What
where it
these
is.
people have done
Leaving
to
all
our
the,
country,
leaving
and
all the
maybe
weapons
toughest of all
overseas.
is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president
We already
in
have
the
that.
history
Yeah.
of our country.
President Trump, thank
Yeah, we're gonna
you.
clean
and
up
that
the,
is our ABC News
immigration.
presidential debate from here in
the
Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
Illegal
And I'm David
aliens.
Muir. Thank you for watching here
But
in the
we're gonna
U.S.
wait
and
till
all
after
over the
the
world,
election.
and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
We need the votes.
Alrighty, guys. So that was the debate, presidential
and we
debate.
are here live
Oh,
on ABC
let's just
with
go
our
ahead and tune in with the
post-debate
post.
comments. I'm Martha Raddatz.
Let's hang
It
out
was
for
a
that, too.
lively
Might as
debate
well.
From the economy to abortion to Afghanistan.
Nice overhead
They
zoom
had
out.
It all, and it was historic. John Carl, fiery.
Wow.
Fire,
Wow.
yet peaceful.
That was
So
quite a
what do-
debate.
It was
And I'm
mostly
Jonathan Carl
peaceful.
here with, of course, Mary
So what do
Bruce
we
and
think
Rachel
that
Scott.
they're going
Our
to say who
reporters
won the debate?
Across the news division have been updating our
What's that?
live blog.
Who do you
looking
think
at
that
some
these
of the
guys are gonna say
allegations
who
made
won the
back
debate?
and forth doing fact checks.
Well,
You can
wouldn't
find
that
that
hurt?
on
ABC.
abcnews.com.
ABC.
But I
Oh,
would like to
they're gonna say
replay this
Kamala.
moment
Yeah.
at the very start of this debate because it was quite a moment. The handshake. And if you look,
Harris. Let's have a good debate. Thank you.
Did she say her own name?
I mean,
Welcome
quite a
to
moment.
Kamala
First of all,
Harris.
we hadn't seen a handshake. We hadn't seen a handshake in a
And she
long time.
initiated that.
Who?
Not only did she initiate it, she walked over to him and sought him out, put the hands out, and also made the first.
If you look
And-
really
and
closely, he was
probably had
reaching
a
for his
plan.
wallet.
Interesting. So more at the bottom line.
I think clearly what Kamala Harris wanted to do was be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we
started
saw
rolling
him
up his
going
window.
from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her, to just angry. I mean, really yelling
jeez.
at some points, trying to make his points. I don't
Wait,
think
did
we
Trump
heard a
actually
lot
like
of
raise his voice?
policy
No,
and
I don't-
plans.
not that
I
I
feel like
remember.
he did. Like I
that,
feel like he did get
despite
very,
those
very
questions
heated
over and over
on
again.
some
But what
parts.
we
He's just a
had was
very
that
passionate
uptick.
man.
You had
Yeah.
Kamala
I mean, just
Harris
look at those
looking
love
over,
letters that he has
beating
between him and Kim
again
Jong-un.
again
Yeah.
and
Very
again.
passionate man.
The microphones were muted when they weren't speaking.
He does
Many
adore
times
strong
she
men.
didn't need a microphone. We watched
Powerful
Donald
men.
Trump Trump get mad, scowl through things. And, you know, John, we were
How long
all
do you think it's
talking
going to
leading
go
up
until
to
they say
this about
something,
how this would go,
somebody
what Donald
says
Trump you
something
would
good
see.
about Donald Trump?
I think he had a plan for talking about what he saw as a next term.
No.
But then he was talking about rumors about people eating their neighbors' pets.
Well, usually
So
they
I
have
really
like one.
She brought up the thing. She's like, he kept bringing up about people eating their neighbors' pets.
Kept bringing it up like he
Dude, I
mentioned
knew
it
he
one
was
time.
going to. That's how I won, was on that one. Thank you, Trump, for that one, for having me as your
That was my bingo.
your bingo winner for the night. Thank you, guys.
But also rattled. And
Dinner is not on me.
contrast, Harris, who
Now,
again, much of the world doesn't
Which
know.
one do you think
dinner is
is
on
the
you.
token
Harris looked like she
conservative
belonged
on this little
stage,
panel here?
Looked like
Do they have one?
she
I don't know.
is somebody that could
Maybe.
serve as president.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight.
There usually
I can tell you
is
the Harris
one.
campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night. That she
Who's
was
the
in
one
command,
not
that she
talking
did
right now?
look presidential, and that she was
Maybe
able,
they don't.
feel,
I don't know.
to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly
That's going to be
his
the
face. I mean,
big
she
issue.
said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. She flat out trolled him many times, got him off message, but she also
that
talked
token?
directly to voters, even inviting them
No.
to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign that she says he's only out for himself, that she argues she's out for the American people.
Rachel?
Yeah, well, look, the Trump campaign is going to be seizing on the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris did not do a great job today really explaining her policy shifts, right? And that is
There
what
it
they
is.
have
She
been
must be
seizing
the
on. They're really
third.
trying to define her for voters when voters
No.
have a lot of questions about her policy positions. At the same time, though, almost every single thing that Vice President
think
Kamala
she's
Harris
a
said
token.
tonight got under Trump's skin. And that is exactly
it
what
is.
his allies and his advisors did not
I knew
want
it.
to see. I could tell you, I do not think that part of Donald Trump's debate prep was people eating dogs in Springfield or comparing rally sizes. They wanted him to stay focused
It's a
on the
legit
issues, especially the ones that
concern.
really edge on Harris, economy and immigration.
Let me ask you
You wanna
this.
get under Donald Trump's
If
skin,
it was your
question
dog, would you be
people
okay with it?
balance. And that was something
If
else.
it was my
Martha, you
duck,
have-
I wouldn't be okay with it.
Would you like going out your front door and seeing somebody eat their duck?
Oh boy.
Whoa, this guy's excited.
You make a great clown.
Martha, I'm feeling
I'm
great
telling
because,
you, if you
what
put like
I
white
know and I
makeup
think
on
so
that
many
dude, he'd
of
make
you
an
and
excellent
many
Joker.
Americans know is you saw a president for all America
Well,
in Kamala
might be a
Harris.
little too
You
old
saw the
There you go.
confidence, you saw the vision, you saw the poise, and you saw the compassion for people, understanding she spoke
He goes,
about
I'm so
an
happy
economy that
because
moves
The
us forward,
confidence, the
moves
poise,
people
the
I know, he
passion.
goes, come.
lets everybody be a
He goes,
part of it,
everybody got
and
to
she
see how
continued
great
to lay that
Kamala
out,
I wonder if
whether
they're
it's
gonna have JD
reproductive
Vance.
freedom or how we start small businesses or making home ownership easier. And on the other side, you saw a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump, angry, unhinged, and as you've been discussing,
Oh, is that what they're gonna
talking
push
about
this whole
things that
time?
are
That he was
deeply
so
concerning
unhinged?
because they make no
And old.
impact on the American
Right.
public. He shouldn't
They're
be
like,
anywhere near
they're
the
like,
White
we have a
House. And I
big
have to
problem
tell
with
you,
really
it
old
works so
people in the
dangerous.
White
It
House.
reminds you
Yes.
of
Not
what
now,
Biden
Biden.
Are they afraid that he's gonna be saying stuff like "Get off my lawn"?
Yeah,
He's old, angry, unhinged, some old
Oh.
curmudgeon.
I think see what happened tonight.
What?
Keep
What was
pushing
that?
forward. That's the way that the country
I'm sending
wants to
you a
see our
picture of your
politics
house
be.
right
She
now.
laid it
You
out
know
clearly.
why.
You know why.
Anger, resentment.
Trump, why are you sending me a picture of my house?
I told him to figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Answer questions on abortion.
Pay no mind with the plus
That
sign
is
with a
why he
circle
would
around
stop
it.
a war in 24 hours. He's like, I sent them all of our satellites over their house
Certainly, you couldn't get any different than
With
this.
a
The
red plus sign and a
reinstitution
circle
with
around
my
the red
middle
plus sign.
finger over
for
the nuke button.
For 52 years, you saw this in there, and him pushing
Nice
back
pull,
to the states,
Putin.
this is exactly right. People like Amanda in Texas,
I wonder
and
if all their
everybody
houses
saw
are
on the
blue
stage in
too.
Chicago, nearly bleeding out, having sepsis
Too
twice
soon.
because she can't
Too
get the
soon.
care. She's been absolutely clear on this. Everything Donald Trump
All right.
said
Any
that
other
is
closing
untrue.
thoughts,
The
or we're gonna
clarity
wrap
of
it up?
this is Roe. When you have
Chad, what are your thoughts?
My
All right, and there's
thoughts.
real quick. There's
Josh,
gonna
put
be-
your comments in the. Anyone who's watching, put your comments down.
All right.
We
yeah.
want to know
so
what you
very
think
much for
too.
joining us, Governor
Yeah, are you guys
Walker.
confident in our one of these people are going to be the president of the United States? Are you guys confident? Are you guys afraid? Are you praying every day for the repentance of these the Big Rocks.
Oh, nice.
A national abortion ban. He didn't answer.
Oh, let's listen to
they
this.
want to bring that up again.
I guess that he wouldn't, and then it was
turn that back up.
you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban and he wants these policies to be made by the states. But I think there's a deeper and more
technically he doesn't
here in this debate, which is
advocate for national abortion ban
effectively
because he's for exceptions.
After platitude after platitude, the American people can't pay their grocery bills on platitudes.
That's why I said this is going to be a big issue for
put their kids in a house
a
on
lot of
platitudes.
abolitionists,
Kamala Harris had a
Christian
lot to
abolitionist
say,
voters.
but very little actual substance behind it for how she's going to lower grocery prices, secure the border, and make housing more affordable in this country. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She can't
giving
run
the
on a
banks more
record,
money, as
and she
Chad
apparently
pointed
can't
out.
run on much of her plans either because it's just a lot of slogans and not a whole lot of substance.
The housing.
But Senator, why won't he just say that he would veto the national abortion ban? And by the way, had you spoken to him about it?
Yeah, he mentioned that that Kamala doesn't have a record of pretty much doing diddly.
No, I hadn't spoken to him about it because, again, Donald Trump thinks the question is absurd because he
Trump
doesn't
is
support a
pro-life,
national
yes,
abortion ban,
which is no
and
different
he's been
than
explicit
pro-choice
about it. And John, I think
in the
that
long
it's
run.
so preposterous for the media
So
to
Trump's
focus so much
views
on an issue
and
where
Harris's
Donald Trump
views
has been crystal clear
pretty
and
much the
not on
same.
fact that people can't afford groceries
I like how they're not
and housing
campaigning
because
on
of
paying
Kamala
off student
Harris's
loans
policies.
anymore.
This is
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
simple and
That would have been really awesome.
Really well.
And we're really gonna we're really gonna forgive student loans.
But they're not talking nearly enough. This debate
And we mean it this time.
Yeah, she's like, I wasn't in office.
It wasn't me. I was the border. I mean, I was. No.
I never. And you know what? I never been to Europe either.
So, do you think if they were to actually follow through with,
and I never paid off other loans either.
So, if they were to pay off student loans, what do you think that they would hemorrhage more money on? Leaving the borders open and allowing illegal immigrants to come in, or closing the border, actually having proper security there, but paying off student loans? Which would hemorrhage the country more?
They're not going to pay off student loans.
Well, which one would? Which one would hemorrhage the country more? Like, which one would be more?
Somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president.
Good
really
answer.
Dumb,
Yeah.
Unable to put two sentences together.
I don't know.
Here's ultimately the thing. If you want to mute on
John,
that,
what I
because
saw
we'll
was
do
a lot of
closing
slogans.
thoughts and
I
then
think
we'll
the
wrap it
American
up.
people are smart.
Let me know when
and
it's
Kamala
muted on
Harris
there.
talks to them
'cause I know
like
it's
their
gonna be
children.
weird. All right. And it's not playing for the viewers, right?
Yeah.
All right. Here's
it's
ultimately
muted.
here's the thing. If we don't stop, and I said this how many before, I talked about this all the time. God is very clear in His law. And throughout the Bible, we see examples of this all over with in Kings, and other places as well. That if we do not stop the child sacrifice, God will bring judgment. How God does that is through giving us wicked leaders.
Right.
Another way He does this is He builds up nations to take over. And that's why it's a huge issue to think about for the abortion stuff, because a lot of people are, they're like, oh, I'm tired of hearing it's going. I'm like, well, it's a problem. And that's what I think it's going to be a big deal. And it's going to end up being a loss for Trump. I think ultimately it's going to be a loss for Trump on this, is because people love their abortions. We saw this today with Missouri, with the Supreme Court and the trying to rule out the Amendment 3 for Missouri, which will allow all forms of abortion to go on even more unchecked. And also, there's stuff in it that even says that we won't be able to speak out against it and stuff. So make sure you check that out and make sure you vote no on that. And this, if you're in Missouri, make sure you vote no on that. Amendment 3, vote no. But that's why I'm like, here's the thing: is at the end of the day, when people are like, well, what's most likely? I'm like, if we don't. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who gets into the president's seat if nobody's going to do anything about the child sacrifice. All right? Because God can take Trump and use it as a punishment for us. He can take Kamala and use it as a punishment for us. So either way, churches, you have to be speaking out against it, and you got to be and we need to be acting out against it. So that's ultimately my thoughts on that one. I thought Trump did here's props. I'll give credit where credit's due. Trump did way better than what I thought he was going to do on the topic of abortion, because I thought he was going to bring up more of his personal preference, like like his own opinions and stuff, personal opinions. And I said that'd be a huge mistake for him. He avoided it a lot, although except one time he started bringing up IVF because he's still confused on that whole topic as well, or I should say more maybe consistent with it, with going on his own view, but confused on what people want, because he's like, because he just some other stuff I'll say, but I'm rambling. Anyways, Kamala saved him on that one by cutting him off, so I think he did way better by not talking about his personal preferences when it comes to abortion. So I'll give him that. Kamala did just as well as I thought, because I won the bingo with her. Well, thanks to Kamala, 3 in a row over, and then Donald Trump coming in.
So how many bingos did you end up with, though?
This bingo game's rigged.
2 at the end. I think everybody got 2. So yeah. I'll be treating all of us.
It was the most rigged bingo game I've ever played.
It was not the most fair.
Adrian, cut his mic off. Cut his mic off. He can say, "I'm talking. Thank you, please."
I had the best bingo game.
I'm talking. Please shut up.
So we got Josh. Josh in the chat. Josh says, "I really think no matter who wins, we lose."
Yeah, dude. I was thinking that.
He said we're doomed.
Yeah,
and I agree. I agree with Josh. Well said.
Yes, and also Josh says, "Woman said on Jason's live today, her friend." On TikTok. Okay. Today her friend had an abortion because it was a boy and she didn't regret it. So a woman murdered her own child because it was a boy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that woman is the same type of woman that thinks that all men from conception, a boy in the womb, is a rapist. Right. So regardless of
she would choose the bear, and the bear would annihilate her.
Yes,
as it should.
It's a straight white male, so I put him down.
Would you give birth to a boy or be in the woods alone with a bear? Yeah. Oh, I would be in the woods alone with a bear instead of giving birth to a boy.
That tells me she's a psychopath, and I don't want to be around her.
Yeah.
Adrian, closing thoughts? Anything?
I think both did equally well and equally poor. And I agree with Josh.
Did do good on the attack, yeah.
Yeah. Both, as far as like how they were poised, their etiquette, their posture, their composure, both did well. Kamala did a lot better than Biden did. She didn't fall asleep. Yeah. She didn't.
It was a low bar.
Yeah, she didn't zone out.
Bar for her.
She didn't zone out. So there wasn't much comparing, contrasting in regard to between her and
there
Biden.
Wasn't a lot of this.
Yeah, she didn't like leave her mouth gaping open. She seemed more engaged in what Trump was saying. But she did have a lot more facial expressions when Trump was talking than Trump had when she was talking.
Chad, closing thoughts. What are you thinking?
Closing thoughts.
Are you excited about? There's 2 more debates right now. Like they said, there's gonna be.
That's awesome. Closing thoughts. I don't know. I thought she did really well in her debate. I thought they both did pretty good, honestly. But she did pretty good. Although I don't know. I felt like she would perform fairly well because because obviously she's getting a lot more top tier talent on her side there.
Okay, something you brought up that you said that I agree with. Thinking about it, was you said that she definitely seemed more prepared on what Trump was gonna say or something like that. So, or she was more what do you call prep? Like
I think she's really good at like if she's got like somebody that comes up with lines, she's really good at reciting things. I think, and I think she planned very well to come up with a lot of like really good gotchas. I guess.
Yeah.
I think she did. I think she did what she came out to do.
Yep. What are your thoughts on Trump? How do you think Trump did? As well as you thought, or better, or worse?
I think he did pretty good. I would have liked to have seen him do like a little more pressure here and there on different topics.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. We'll try to go live again for the other 2 debates that they have, and then maybe we'll be able to work something out to be on here when the actual election is on November 5th, when the big day when it's happening. But mainly, I just want to see Amendment 3 be voted out. So make sure again, guys. The Amendment 3 that we have, these lovely business cards that we are handing out to everybody to warn everybody about it. So Amendment 3, if you're in Missouri, Amendment 3, you need to vote no on that one.
Right.
It is a terrible amendment. It goes against what God says, and so that is why we want to go against it, because we want to honor God and Christ and all of life. So, because Christ is king.
Yeah, and Amendment 3, if that were to pass, not only would it allow for full-term abortion all the way up to 9 months, but the language of the amendment
we should be clear, back in the clinics.
Right,
they can, because if they figure out a way on how to do it...
Clinical abortions would be legal again, so a mother doesn't have to do it on her own. She can pay an assassin to do it now.
Yeah, because abortion's still legal.
But it would allow for clinical abortion all the way up to 9 months, and the language of the amendment is so ambiguous that it would allow for partial birth abortion.
Yep.
And even post-birth abortion.
And it also has language that allows for what was it on there although I don't know if that's a trigger word for YouTube. But anyways, Adrian has a how-to video, so you can look up on how to look up that amendment and read it for yourself. But we'll wrap it up. So thank you to the guys who came over here, drove over here as quick as possible so that we can make this happen in time for that. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for also losing to me in the bingo game and then tying up in the end. All right, well, we're going to have to go get some dinner or something. So, all right, we appreciate you guys. God bless.
Of the people. And I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things that we shared. For the people.
So inclusion is a national security imperative.
But the people...
Do you know how many states make up the USA? I think 50 or 51, because I don't know if they count Hawaii as a state.
Are retarded.
For my people are foolish. They know me not. They are stupid children. They have no understanding. They are wise in doing evil. But how to do good they know not.
So let us say, government by the retarded.
The administration will issue a letter warning public schools across the country that they should not discriminate against transgender children, that they should be allowed to go to the restroom and locker room of the gender they identify with.
Of the retarded.
We're making good progress designing body armor that fits women properly, tailoring combat uniforms for women, creating maternity flight suits, updating requirements for their hairstyles.
For the retarded.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
I can't.
So
I'm not a biologist. In my work as a judge, and I look at the law and I decide.
Well, democracy cannot be the highest possibility man can attain.